Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. And I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And I started my journey trying to learn about freedom, and I learned that it's composed of 4 different types: time, financial, location, health, freedom. And I started my journey looking for individuals on the margins embodying these principles. So today, I'm happy to re-welcome Dr. Debra Blaine. She's been a guest on previous episodes, but she has some recent works that she came out with. She also will talk about differences between self-publishing and the traditional route. And I'm really happy to reconnect and talk about creatives, writing, and share it with you guys. So Debra, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. It's always great talking to you.
I love the physician community. Writers really resonate with me. I'm a bibliophile. So tell the audience, your story and what you've been up to.
So my story is that I'm a disgruntled doctor. And so I've been sort of pivoting, and I found my real passion is writing, and I've been writing fiction. So I've had now 3 books out, and I'm almost done with the first draft of my 4th. And what I did, I also learned along the way, I learned to self-publish. So my first 2 books I published with a hybrid. And then my 3rd, I just didn't want to wait so long for them to get it out. So, but I ended up, it took me from the time that I sent my manuscript, my final draft, to an editor, which would be like sending it to the publisher, to the time that it was released and available around the world, took 67 days. And that included 2 professional edits. I think it was a great cover design, and getting my ISBNs, setting up my accounts, doing all those things that you have to do to self-publish or to publish at all. And it was just such a more gratifying experience that I took my first 2 books back and I republished them, because you can see so much more when you publish it yourself. You can see your day-to-day sales. My royalties went up by 4 times.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because because I'm not sharing that with the publisher, and they're not, there's just, we can go into detail with that if you'd like, but
yeah,
I get all the royalties instead of splitting it after, Ingram and Amazon and the publisher and, all that. No, it's just me and Amazon, or me and Ingram, or me and Apple. Yeah. And it's just so much better.
And I believe Amazon actually has a really generous split. It's like 70 to the author, and then, 30 to the, which is not a bad, split. So you started your first book, and what's really interesting is you wrote fiction, but you used stories to highlight, the problems with the medical profession, being a patient. So tell us more about how you combine, your love for writing, creativity with, writing a book.
So I always wanted my books to say something, more than just be a nice, a cool story. So I like to be able to make a statement when I'm writing fiction, but to kind of bury it in an entertaining tale so that you can just enjoy the story. Hopefully, you get involved in the characters and all that. But if you also want to look at it as, what does it mean to have to work in a corporate urgent care? What's happened to medicine today? Or in my book, Undue Influences, it's what's happened to our society? Why don't we listen to each other? Why don't we form our own opinions, which is what that book is really about. Yeah. But a story is about, the government literally brainwashing our minds on both sides, the conservatives and the liberals. And it's about a man who is struggling to save his family before he is annihilated, because if he won't help he figures out what they're doing, and he has like a special ability to resist it, and they want him to help him. And if he doesn't want to help them, then they want to kill him. So that's Undue Influences. And then my newest book, which is the one I did very, I did it in like 67 days to get it out there. This is what would happen possibly to us if we don't heed the signs of, and we end up with a planet that's restructuring itself, for lack of a better word, because we've neglected it so much, and dictatorships because nobody believes elections anymore, and how we need to escape. But I think most science fiction writers do that too.
Yeah.
Things like iRobot has been out, they've been playing it a lot, but the whole idea that robots, if everything's logical, we're not logical, we don't make sense, and maybe we shouldn't be the ones in control of our destiny. And so I think that's sort of a tradition that science fiction writers try to make a statement too.
Yeah. Some of my favorite fiction writers were like Michael Crichton and John Grisham, Ben Mesrick. And I love how they incorporate, storylines and character development and kind of create this work of fiction, with this overall narrative and theme. And then you went on book tour, very successful. And also you've been on radio appearances as well. And the other thing is you've transitioned, people reach out to you and ask for help with writing. So you've done some coaching. So speak to that experience, how you can leverage your expertise and help others.
I think that's like the most fun thing to do, is to because it's so exciting when people want to write. I just get so excited for them. I just help them with the structuring of what they want to say. And I mean, fiction is my favorite, but I help people with nonfiction as well. And the sort of structure of the story. And the hardest thing for people is, I've worked with a couple of people who hadn't written even a sentence yet. And the hardest thing for them is to write that first paragraph. And so it's sort of like we talk about it, and we, what are the things, and I talk about point of view and characters and development of characters and the theme. Every book has a theme. And when you identify what your book's theme is, so your theme is like more of a one-word thing. It's like your book is about greed, like Code Blue is about greed, or the book is about justice, or it's about love, or something like that. And when you keep that in mind, when you get stuck in the book, now what should happen? Go back to your theme and you say, okay, what would move my story forward, to demonstrate the theme that I'm working on. Yeah, and it's just a lot of fun. And then later stages, I do like a developmental edit as we go along, and what about this character? What about this character? Can you explain this? Because when you get really close to a book, when you're writing it, you don't realize, what you mean, but you don't always realize that you haven't spelled it out. And so that's why it's really important to have somebody to work with. My books, all three of them, I've had beta readers, which is always a great thing. Yeah. You give your book to someone and you say, it's got to be someone who understands the process, and say, if you can read this and tell me where I didn't explain something, or what doesn't make sense. Or like one of my beta readers for Code Blue, actually, the first book, she came back to me and said, this is all great, but you got to develop your villains. It hadn't occurred to me, the villains have to be real people too. And so then I started doing that and giving them a backstory and their motivations and what makes them villainous. Why do they choose this lifestyle? It's just really cool.
Yeah. It's really, like I said, the whole creative process. I talked to a lot of physicians. They love art, and so they've created art, and it's very therapeutic. And then so tell for the audience, they're interested in maybe reaching out to you, asking for advice, but also this whole idea of going the self-publishing route versus the traditional route, and what you learned and all of that.
So there's three ways we can publish, right? So there's traditional, there's a hybrid, and there's the self-publish. So the traditional route is very cumbersome. Your book has to be it's really even your query letter. You have to spend weeks and weeks just writing the query letter for them to even look at you, because the agents get 500 queries a week, and they just no. But the hybrids are much easier to get into. I kind of fell into the hybrid. Okay. I was at a Shiva, actually, and I had just finished the manuscript, and I was talking to a friend of a friend who had a friend. She was saying that her friend worked at this hybrid, and and she was messaging, can I give your number to Fern? And I said, and Debra, put Debra there. And so I ended up talking to her, and I submitted the manuscript, and it was accepted right away. So it was just like really easy. And I love my former publisher. They were great. They taught me so much about the whole world, which was like a whole new career. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand the editing process or why things get done a certain way. But they just took too long. And I didn't even seriously, like, they told me it would be out in 6 months. The first one was out in 8 months. The second one was out in 11 months.
Wow.
And that was just frustrating because I wanted Undue Influences was very time sensitive. It was about 2020 in this country, and it didn't come out till 2021. So I was frustrated by that. And then for the next one, I said, well, how long is this? What can you guarantee me? Because I want it done sooner. And they promised me a year.
Wow.
And I said, okay, well, I don't want to do that. So that's when I learned how to self-publish, and I did it all myself. And I got some advice from some of our colleagues. The people in the Women Physician Writers Facebook group are so supportive. I feel really bad. I don't know why men are not invited. It's a women's group. You have to be a doctor, you have to be a woman, you have to be a writer. Very specific. So when I did Beyond the Pillars of Salt, this is Beyond the Pillars of Salt, I got the whole thing done in 67 days. And I just, I learned, okay, this is where I get my ISBNs. This is how I get a barcode. I found one of the editors was Kyrgyz. They said they would have it done in 15 business days. They had it done in like 10. But they did an amazing edit for me and really, delineated all their reasons. And of course, they told me it was a great book, which made me love them. But then I found a cover designer who's done all 3 of these covers. Like, everything just sort of fell into place. And I learned the hard way with a lot of things, like how do you upload to Ingram and still be able to upload privately or separately to Amazon? Because you have to make sure that you tell Ingram not to distribute to Amazon. Because you want to do that. Otherwise, Ingram takes their 20% and then Amazon and Ingram takes 6 months to post anything. And Amazon tells you basically day by day. I get a check from Amazon every month. It's like every 30 days, the end of the day, end of the month, I get and I can just go online and see how many books I sold of which book, whether it was a digital or whether it was, like an ebook, or whether it was a physical book, which market it was in. Oh, you sold 2 books in Canada. How cool is that? So it's, it's just, and then, so what I did was I took back my original books and I republished them. And I think I did a better job. So Undue Influences, which is the psychological political thriller, a couple people told me that it looked like a psychology self-help book. And once I heard that, it was like, I hate it. I was like, yeah, you're right. So I republished it because it's a thriller. And when I republished it, it looks like this.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so this is a thriller. So you got to get yourself a cover designer who knows how to make your book stand out, but fit in with the genre that you're writing in, so that when people are looking for thrillers, they're going to stop and look at that and then read all the metadata and say, okay, I want to buy that, as opposed to they're looking at the other one and saying like, yeah, and just passing it by. So I've learned to do all that. And so in addition to coaching writers, I also, if somebody just has their manuscript done and they just want me to coach them through the publishing process, I do that too.
Yeah.
And I stay available to them until they get everything up, and I format their files for them. And I tell them, okay, so with Apple, you're going to set up your account on this link, but you're going to upload on this link, all those kind of little things that I kind of learned along the way. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Interesting. And so it sounds like, the traditional way is very cumbersome and you need to know people. And there's a lot of it's gated. And then self-publishing is kind of democratized. Speak to the marketing side, because I know if you go with a big publisher, they can market it and, help. But, of course, they take their cut in all the fees. So how authors' options for marketing their book and getting it out?
So you have to market it yourself. But even with a hybrid, which is, so a hybrid does everything for you, but they charge you. Self-publishing is actually cheaper than the hybrid. The hybrids, they don't really market for you. And excuse me, and even the traditional, they don't do a lot of marketing. Like, we have a colleague who's been doing it traditionally, And she'll say, if they do market, it's going to be like, okay, you're going here on this date, and then you're going there, and then you're going there. You don't really have an option. And it's kind of, that's the whole thing with the traditional publishing, is if they want to change your title, they're going to change your title. If they want you to take out this chapter and put in a different one, that's what you're supposed to do. And as far as, so you'll get an advance. If you're Dan Brown, you'll get $250,000 or more, but so it's worth it. But if you're, one of us, for the most part, even if you have several books out, you're going to get $5,000 to $10,000, which sounds great. Then you probably won't make another dime, because the way that the royalties are set up, you have to pay back in your royalties that $10,000 before you get any more money. You're only going to get 10% of royalties. So how do you calculate a royalty? So let's say you have a book for $20, which is a lot of money for a paperback, but it's just easier to calculate. So if you go, if your book is $20 and you go through Ingram, which is what the traditional publishers do, Ingram is going to take 15% right off the top. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be $3 off your $20. Let's say they send it to Amazon to be distributed. Amazon takes 40% of your paper books, no matter who sends it to them. So that's $8 off your $20. Mm-hmm. So 8 and 3, that's already $11 that are gone. Now you got to subtract the cost of printing your book.
Wow.
So let's say it costs $5 to print the book. So now you have 11. So that's now cost you $16. And then Ingram is going, or your publisher is going to charge you a fee, right? So let's say they charge another, 10%. So now that's another $2. Now you're up to $18. You have $2 left. And now you're going to get your royalties, which are usually about 10% or less. So 10% of your $2 is 20 cents. So how many books do you have to sell back to get back your $10,000 and start making anything more on it? Whereas if you do it yourself, if I take that same $20 book and I put it up on Amazon, Amazon takes us 40%. They take the $8. Then I got to subtract the cost of printing the book. Let's say it's $5. So that's now $13. So the rest of that $7 is mine.
Yeah.
That's it. So instead of 20 cents a book, I'm getting $7 a book. And I can see what's going on every single day. And then I can say, you know what, this isn't selling as well. And I can even see people are clicking on the book, but they're not buying the book if I put up ads or something. And I can say, well, maybe I want to change the metadata, the description of the book. I can do that. If I do it myself, I can do that anytime I want. It's just, you just have so much more control, and you can see what's happening when you do different things. That's my preference.
Yeah, so you can basically cut out the middleman. Yeah, it's quite interesting. The whole creator royalty, and basically, I mean, you get further up in the line in terms of the income stream. So, yeah, interesting. So, people listening to this, how can they find your books, and how can they reach out to you if they have interest in coaching or talking about the self-published process? How can they contact you?
So you can find everything at my website, Debra Blaine. My books are all on Amazon. You just look under Debra Blaine Books. And simple. I have like a separate page on my website for the Very Indie Press. So what I did, so I have a coaching company, which is Resilience Coaching LLC, which is, I use that for physician coaching, and then I did a doing business as Very Indie Press. So the Very Indie Press now publishes my books. So I have the little logo here. So you can go to that page, find out information. There are links on there for my calendar schedule, and you're welcome to book a call. It's completely free to just chat about what kind of book. I would love to hear from everybody. What are you writing? How far along are you? Just to, kind of get excited with you about your project. And then you can decide, if there's no obligation to work together or not.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, thanks. And for the audience out there, Dr. Blaine's resources will be in the links and show notes. Be sure to check out her books. They're all on Amazon, highly rated, highly reviewed. Be sure to follow her on social. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I always love talking to you. And it's a real privilege.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.